In the intricate world of Korean affairs, tailored intelligence makes all the difference. Korea Risk Group's consulting services offer specialized, actionable intelligence designed to guide your Korea-related decisions. We provide bespoke consulting services that cater to your unique challenges and goals. From policy analysis to market entry strategies, we bring clarity to complexity. Transform uncertainty into opportunity and visit koreapro.com solutions today. Hello listeners and welcome to the NK News Podcast. I'm your host, Jacco Zwetsloot, and this episode is recorded on Tuesday, the 10th of June, 2025, and I'm joined here in the studio by Colin Zwirko, my fellow Z-Man. Colin, welcome back on the show.
Hello, fellow ZW man.
Now, we have breaking news. That's right, we also have a W in common. Breaking news, Kim Jong Un rushed to a hospital.
Yes, he's seen at the hospital for the second time in the last week.
Goodness me. Is he ill?
No, so he's visiting a hospital construction site.
Oh.
Well done,
That's
Jacco.
like some sort of a head fake there. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I remember there was a hospital in Pyongyang that took 5 years to complete. That was the big general hospital.
Yeah.
What's this one? Another one?
That one is the big one in Pyongyang, and he's supposed to finally open it in October this year.
Oh, heck, it hasn't even opened yet. Okay.
No, yeah, because they were trying to get medical equipment to furnish the whole thing. So
Right.
they basically built the whole thing and then left it kind of, they couldn't acquire the equipment. It's expensive, it's sanctions, it's,
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Okay, but this is a different
So
hospital.
he says he wants to build a hospital in 20 counties or cities per year for 10 years as part of that 20 times 10 rural development project.
The big project, right.
So he was promising that last year that they would start building 20 hospitals per year.
Mm.
It wasn't so explicit when you go back into it, but he suggested that it would start this year. But instead, they're building 3 pilot projects this year of 3 different sizes. So that's,
Are they in or around Pyongyang?
2 of them are, I think, and then one of them is up in Kusong, which is a lot of these projects under the 20 times 10 rural development project, a lot of the ones that are being chosen are in heavily military-oriented towns, although, the whole country kind of is. But
So the one that he was seen at most recently.
yeah, today in state media, he was up in Kusong. So this is a place he just visited most recently to check out a tank factory.
Mm-hmm.
State media didn't say that, of course, but we could tell that it was up in Kusong. And
Sorry, how far is that from the capital?
it's up in North Pyongyang province, so it's up in the northwest.
So it's a long drive or a short flight, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
wow.
so, he's just checking out. I would say the interesting thing about this is that Kim Jong Un is basically only showing up at military-related
Right.
inspections in the last, however many months.
Mm.
So far this year, almost all of them is military-oriented. Weapons, factories, training. It's all related. His big thing right now is he's in the war in Ukraine.
So this is a military hospital, which...
No.
Oh, sorry.
But my point is that his outlet
Yes.
for doing,
Public works.
improving the lives of citizens, that line of his part of his leadership, his outlet for that is this 20 times 10 project. So really every, month he'll show up at one factory site or hospital or leisure complex as part of this 2010. So it's become this outlet for him to show the people he still cares about them, while in reality, most of his attention seems to be on the military.
Now, if they've had trouble equipping the first large general hospital in Pyongyang with facilities, then they're going to have a lot more difficulty getting, equipping 20 of them each year for the next 10 years.
Yeah, we shall see. So
Boy.
they're not super clear yet on whether or not the 20 per year thing will start next year or if they'll keep on with this pilot programs. He said in his last visit last week to the one near Pyongyang that he's trying to gauge how it goes and that they want to make their construction process based on how this year's projects go. But then today, the main point of the state media report today was that the construction workers, the military conscript construction workers are, quote, unskilled, immature, unprofessional, and that's a big problem for Kim Jong Un.
That's what he's saying?
Yeah.
Oh.
What he means is that they don't have the skills. Of course, that's his fault because he's been in charge of the military conscript construction worker system during his entire time in power.
Right.
But what he's talking openly about it because he wants underlings to fix it.
Right.
So he's calling for a conference to be held next month on construction workers.
Oh.
But the thing is, they just held one in 2022 where he talked about basically all the same stuff and nothing was fixed. So what's going to change this time?
All right. Now, give us an update on the ship launch that didn't go well over there in Chongjin port on the East Coast.
Yeah, so May 21st, so today's June 10th, May 21st, Kim held a ceremony to launch this new warship, the second one of this destroyer class warship. The first one they launched in April on the West Coast, so this was up on the East Coast. State media came out immediately a day after to say that the launch failed, that the ship capsized on its side.
This is one of those ships this was a launch in which the ship is kind of slid into the water lengthways, so side on, then it kind of, if you see it done well, it looks like it's about to fall over, but then it rights itself.
Yeah.
Right, but this one it didn't.
Right. State media hasn't showed us any video or photos of this event, but they came out and admitted it quite quickly a day after it happened. I assume that that's because there were hundreds of people there at the ceremony watching this. I mean, can you imagine?
No.
Can you imagine? I mean, we saw the video on KCTV of the April ship launch.
The one that succeeded.
Yeah, and it's a huge event. They put a lot of production into this. They built facility. They built
viewing stands.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And we saw in satellite imagery they built this stuff at Chongjin too.
Ooh.
And that's probably the reason why they came out and admitted it, because it was gonna spread that news. So, but anyway, it took them. They initially said it would take a few days, 2 to 3 days, to lift the ship upright. It ended up taking about a week more than that. They finally lifted it. Then state media gave us an update finally last week. And then we saw that it was lifted, and they said they would move it up to Rajan shipyard up in Rasan.
For repairs.
About 50 miles to the north for further repairs, and that should only take about 10 days.
Right.
And so, we've seen in satellite imagery that it moved up to there on Sunday. And now they're going to do whatever they do to get it fixed up in time for the party plenum that we're looking forward to at some time on the end of this month, where we can expect Kim Jong Un to talk about the ship. We can expect him to maybe talk about the South Korean election, maybe talk about Trump. I wouldn't put too high hopes on that, but that's a venue for all kinds of stuff to happen.
Yeah, just quickly on the election, that there has been an acknowledgement that an election took place, that a new person's been elected, but there's not been a lot of coverage on that, right?
Yeah, state media gave a 2-sentence report. I guess it was the 2 days after, or the more, like 24 hours after the results were announced. So that was last week, and the 2 sentences said that it gave the number of the election, which was the 21st?
21st,
presidential election. And they gave the name of the guy who won, Lee Jae-myung. Lee Jae-myung. And then they didn't give any indication of what his party affiliation is, what his leanings are, liberal, conservative, whatever.
Right.
Of course, they say that this was the 21st time that people have elected a president, which is kind of interesting. But
that is interesting.
Wow. But no indication. A North Korean without access to other channels of information would have nothing to go by. They'd be like, it's another leader of this place that we're told to hate.
Very neutral tone of manner. Yeah. Back to the ship there for a moment. I saw in some non-NK news reporting some story about a large number of balloons above or around that ship launched. Did you see that in the satellite imagery?
Yeah, so these are balloons that look like 4 or 5 meters across, maybe kind of picture the kind of balloons that you see used in South Korea for sending leaflets across the border.
Okay.
Maybe that kind of size, although it's kind of hard to tell. And that you could see in the satellite imagery that they were above the ship. So typically, I'm not an expert on this, but I've read about when you're trying to raise a half-submerged ship or something like that, you might use some sort of balloons underwater, put them into the ship, try to
give some buoyancy.
And then this use of balloons above the ship would be a not so conventional thing, and it got a lot of media coverage because it sounds strange, right?
Right, and this is kind of in the theme of North Korea's strange country stories, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
In the end, we don't know how much these contributed to raising the ship. I don't think I've heard any experts say that they think that the balloons lifted the ship out of the water or something. Yeah, it could actually get out of, maybe it'll go away from them and it'll end up in South Korea.
Wow. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But they ended up lifting it somehow. Maybe those were some experts have written that was just for kind of preventing it from totally sinking or something like that, but not for
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Now, you're working on a story this is a bit of a teaser for our listeners. You're working on a story that this episode will come out on Tuesday, but your story will come out tomorrow on NK News.
Yeah.
But to give us the listeners a bit of a teaser, what are you writing about?
Yeah, this is interesting. There is another new luxury mall that has opened in Pyongyang. So
For shopping. Okay.
So the topic of how middle class or wealthy Pyongyang residents are living these days is it's still kind of an enigma to you can kind of check it out on social media, especially since there have been more Chinese students entering the country, living there on a daily basis. These aren't tourists. These are students who are posting on social media.
On Chinese social media, so the Chinese
on China or on Twitter or something like that. They're living the life in Pyongyang that you would expect to see in Seoul for exchange students or in Beijing. There's a lot of nice restaurants, sushi restaurants, hot pot restaurants, a lot of these malls. And so basically the story that we're coming out tomorrow is yet another new mall with a fake IKEA store with actual IKEA products.
Yes, okay. I saw that back in 2019.
But another one.
So there's another one. They're really into IKEA. And which China has been for a long time too, as I recall.
Right. And a Starbucks copycat. So while the IKEA is actually using IKEA products and IKEA advertising,
right?
This coffee shop is blatantly copying Starbucks Reserve. They have the little horizontal line and the R under it, but it's a different logo. And this mall has connections to Japanese investors.
But surely they wouldn't be able to use Starbucks beans or mugs or things like that.
No, they're all their own brand, but they're blatantly copying Starbucks Reserve.
I'd wonder where they get, a little bit of a tangent here, but in Australia a few years ago, there were these stories about cafes that were broken into at night time when they weren't open, and people walking off with these very expensive, high-pressure espresso machines for resale on the market, apparently, in Asia, because there was a shortage of the good espresso machines. And I'm just wondering, where is Pyongyang getting its good espresso machines from? Could you imagine that as an object made out of some sort of stainless steel, that's probably a sanctioned item, right?
I'm gonna clue you into something.
Go on.
Sanctions aren't really a thing.
Oh.
North Korea is importing hundreds of trucks, cars, farm machines, all these things from China. Espresso machines, I'm sure. Right. All these things are prohibited by sanctions, and nobody cares. China does not try to enforce this. No one can enforce this. No. Its sanctions aren't effective. So I would assume that they're just purchasing it outright from someone in China, and they have the money, the investors. The investor side, that's one topic, but I think it's really interesting. Just consumerism in Pyongyang is really interesting these days.
Now, is this a mall that's already open or about to open?
It's open.
Okay.
So yes, conditions are very questionable in many parts of the country, but people in Pyongyang are getting access to this kind of lifestyle that you would expect to see in Beijing or Seoul in certain aspects, you know? And so there are outlets and options for people with money. To enjoy themselves in a real modern kind of way. Yeah.
The Donju, yeah. Okay, now in our last minutes remaining to us, give us a quick update on the Wonsan Kalma Resort over there on the peninsula near Wonsan on the east coast. Apparently, after all these years, it's just about ready to open.
Yeah, it's scheduled to open in June, sometime in June.
That's this month.
There's no date, but we're kind of watching it in state media or in satellite imagery, and in the last few days, they've gotten rid of a lot of the temporary worker structures. They've paved a lot of new roads. They've paved the airport parking lot and the terminal side, the plane parking apron.
Yep.
So they are getting ready to open this probably any day now. Maybe this week, maybe next week, there will be a big ceremony with Kim Jong Un. And then it remains to be seen what level of access foreign tourists have to it. But I assume we will start to see a lot of coverage of domestic tourists groups visiting. That would be students, workers from various factories probably will be shown going there on a regular basis in the summer months.
I remember originally it was supposed to be, sort of slated to be a place for South Korean tourists to come if North and South rapprochement continued when it was floated back in 2019. That obviously hasn't happened. Doesn't look like it'll be happening anytime soon, nor does Western tourism. So if international tourism does begin, it would be Russians and Chinese, I imagine. to Wonsan country. But it's a big place, right? There are tens of thousands of rooms and apartments there, right?
Yeah,
it's big.
It's gigantic. Now I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it's like, gosh, what is the beach? It's like 7 kilometers long or something.
Wow.
The beach. It's if you tried to walk from end to end of this resort, and the resort is situated along this peninsula beach, white sand beach. I would say, like, of course, the tourism experts have gone back and forth on what they've been told by the North Korean side, and I mean the tour agency people, the Western tour agency people. But from what I've gathered in the last couple of years, it can flip on a dime. So they might be telling them now that it's not going to happen, but the way that just physically this place is set up, the way that it's isolated from the rest of Wonsan, the way that you can arrive at the airport, which is directly connected to the resort. If North Korea wants to make some money from this place, they don't have a whole lot of political obstacles in their way, in my opinion.
Right.
They could tell the Western tour companies, if they could get things situated with direct flights from Beijing to Wonsan or whatever, that start booking tours here, and then we'll see some level of interest. Of course, you know. And
for North Korea, it would be a boon in that not only would you be bringing in some cash tourism, but it's a great place to sequester tourists from the local population, right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to be wandering around the streets looking at North Korean houses and trying to shop at North Korean shops. It's
ideal for North Korea. Some of the tour agency people have said to us that that's not attractive to specialist tourists, niche tourists that would even be, that this kind of tour would even be on the radar. People want to see the real North Korea.
Right.
I think it would get a lot of interest at first, and it's hard to say, but I think it's better than nothing for the North Korean side, and people would go. Chinese tourists could go too, you know. The Chinese ambassador has been talking a lot about tourism, wanting to see Chinese tourists come into the country. He's been going around North Korea in the last couple of weeks, so yeah, I don't quite know what is holding them back from restarting the full Chinese tourists, but that's a whole other topic that we have covered.
Yes. For this and all other stories that we've just talked about today, you'll find at nknews.org, so go check them out. Colin, thanks very much for coming on the show again.
Thank you, Jacco.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our podcast episode for today. Our thanks go to Brian Betts and Alana Hill for facilitating this episode, and to our post-recording producer genius Gabby Magnuson, who cuts out all the extraneous noises, awkward silences, bodily functions, and fixes the audio levels. Thank you, and listen again next time.